Hey guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at hash tables. I went ahead and switched things up a little bit and decided to use HTML and JavaScript for this. Let's get right into it. So when you first open up the HTML page, this is what you're going to see. It's a real simple design meant to make it easy on the eyes and still be able to see everything. So up here you've got the output where the hash table is going to appear and all the information pertaining to it. Then down here is where you essentially actually manage the hash table. So you've got the input field, your insert button, find button, delete button, and display button. You've also got a little checkbox down here, which actually changes what hash starts out as whenever it goes through to insert it. And I'll get into that a little bit more when I look at the code. You've also got an elapsed time here. This is so you can see how long it takes to put the information in there. Obviously, the more you try to put in at one time, the longer it's going to take. So I went ahead and had 20 names go in here so you can at least see what it's going to do. So the way I have it set up is it shows the name as the original name as however you put it in, and then it shows the hashed value after that. Now, in order to show you the difference between using a prime number and not priming number, the only way to do that is to use bigger data sets. So if we start off with there's 1,000 names that I'm about to put in here, but it's actually technically only 100 duplicated 10 times just for the sake of names because I didn't want to have to try to create more. Alright, so if I insert without a prime number, it takes 2.6 milliseconds for it to do, which really doesn't seem like a lot, but the bigger the data sets, the more it's going to take. If I reload and initialize as a prime number, and then put all 1,000 names in there, it only takes 1.9 seconds. So it actually took, I believe it was 0.7 milliseconds off, which again isn't that bad. Anyways, let's go take a look at the code. So when you first open up the HTML page to view the actual code, you will see a very lot of stuff. Don't worry, the majority of this is actually just styling. It was a lot easier to just throw it all in here than create a separate page for the sake of this simple project. Alright, so if you go down to the bottom, maybe. Alright, so with this class here, this is what initializes everything, gets everything ready. So you've got the constructor, which starts with the however many different, I guess, I don't know what you call it, buckets or whatever. So however many rows or lists that you want to hold, basically. This .ht is going to create an empty set of arrays using the number of keys that you chose up here, which in this case I did 10. Then you go down here to the hash key, and this is what actually converts it from a string to a hashed value. So to start off, it is actually going to check the status of the checkbox. So if it's true, it sets it to a prime number of 5,381, and if it's false, it sets it to 5,080. Which, true or false, is it checked, is it not checked. Then it's going to loop through each character within the data that you provided. So it's going to start with that initial value. So if that initial value is 5,381, that's what it's going to start with. This is going to multiply times 33, okay? And then it's going to take the original number again, so 5,381 or 380, and it's going to add that to what it just multiplied. Then it's going to take the character code, which is simply just a set value for each character that exists, and based on that character, whatever that value is, it's going to add that to it. That then becomes the hash that gets returned, which is then inserted, which brings us to the insert data function. So this function actually works if it's multiple. So there's two different ones. You've got single function and the regular function. So if you're only doing one, it's going to use the insert single data. If not, it's going to use the big one. Alright, so when you go here, it automatically starts. Now in JavaScript, the only way to do the actual clock is performance.now, which gets the current time and calculates it that way. Then here is an if-else statement. So it's going to check to see if the data that you provided is an array. If it is, then it's going to use that insert single data function. I apologize. I mixed my words up earlier. That is one function, but this function here actually will create basically a loop for every single item that is in that array to put it in that single. So it does it still does it one at a time. That's all this is right here. If not, then it automatically just uses that function no matter what, with just once. And then it's going to stop the clock and then display it. Here is the actual insert function. So it's going to take the data that you provided and convert it to a string, which in this case, it's already technically a string, but that's just in case you decide to put something that's not actually a string. It's then going to create the data key, which is essentially where it's going to go. So then it's going to input that into the actual designated index within the hash table using the data. Now in here, I have it set up to show the original data, which actually shows what you implemented, what you put in originally before it hashes it, and the hash data, so you can see both. Then here is the display hash table function. So it's going to go through, and for each item or each index, it's going to get the item that it had, or each item, and convert it to a string, showing both the original and hashed value split by an arrow. That's just to make it easier so you can see. So it's going to show the original item, the hashed value, and then you'll see an arrow like you saw in the past. And then it's actually going to, this right here is the output. So up here is where it gets what it needs, the information, and this is where it actually puts it out. The index, what index it is, and then displays all the items. So the items essentially gets every item within that specific index, and then this right here displays it. Now this long line here, this is just to make it easier to see when you're looking at it. If nothing is there, then it will actually return a string of hash table is empty. Otherwise, it will return whatever's in there. If you want to find the value, this is the function there. This function is going to calculate the hash of the data and convert it to a string. And then it's going to calculate the index from the hash. And then down here is where it checks to see if the given value exists in the bucket corresponding to the hash and return the value. So if it doesn't exist, it's false. If it does, it's true. Here is where the actual initialization of the names and the table. So up here is where you tell it how many you want. So like I said earlier, it has 10 indexes or keys, whatever you want to call them. And then here is just a simple array that tells it what to insert at the beginning. So I just threw in 20 names for it to put wherever. It then goes through and puts each one through that insert data function, adding it to the table. Then you have the get input value. So this is actually the function that gets the input from the text field. So it's going to use the document.get element ID or by ID, and that essentially just links it so it knows what to get. So it sets the input, and then it's going to tell you, okay, the value is the input.value.trim. So this just gets rid of any spaces, is all that does. And then over here is where it returns the values. So if it has a it checks to see if it has a comma. If it has the comma, it splits it wherever it's at, and then it removes any other spaces. You've got the function insert data again. So this is going to put it through that original function that we put in the HashTable class. Then it's going to use the output element and set the text as whatever the array is. So once you put it in, it tells you whatever. It basically gets the information that you put into it and then puts it in the output, letting you know, hey, this was outputted. If nothing is there, if a valid input is not, it will return an error saying, please enter valid text. Find value. So it's automatically going to check to see if it's a string. If it is, then it's going to set the value that it needs to find. It's going to send it through the find value. So this essentially constant found is going to become a true or false. So if it finds the value that it inserted, it's going to return true, if not false. The hash value is the same thing. It's going to put it through the hash key. It's going to find the value that it needs, and then it's going to tell you here. This is the output function, or not really a function, but the part of it that will display the message. So it'll say it was found or not found. So up here is where it is. If it was found, it displays the original string that you inserted with the value, the hash value that it converted to hash if it was found. If not, it'll say not found. Now, I will tell you, it will only be able to find one at a time. So if you insert multiple, you can't search for multiple at the same time. You can only search for one at a time, which is what this is for. It says it's just an else statement, where if it's not a string, which in this case, that basically means if you put in an array or multiple separated by commas, then you will receive a thing telling you to enter a single value to find. Then you've got the delete. So this one is again going to determine if it's a string. So you can only do one at a time. And then it will take the data that the string that you put in, put it through the delete data function. If it's deleted, it's true. If it's not, it's false. And then this here, again, just displays the result. So if it was true, it tells you what was deleted. If not, it tells you that it was not found. So if the data is not there, it will just tell you it's not found. Obviously, it's not deleted because of that. And last but not least, the display hash table. So this is going to again call upon the HashTable.display HashTable function within the HashTable class and set that output to that. So then you're going to set the text of the output element, which is the name that I had named it before. So then it's going to set that to this function. So it's going to go through everything, display, get the information it needs, and then display it here. That's all for now. See you guys next time.